All right, so first step is I want to get this thing running. So we're going to start with carburetor cleaning. So probably should have videotaped this whole process. Didn't, so sorry about that. So here's your carburetor. It sits on top here. In order to get it to this point right here, all these hoses were loose. This hose is very, very brittle. Pops straight off. So to get to this point, you're coming to the left. If you're sitting on the machine, to your left hand side, you want to disconnect the gas line. This is where the gas feeds in from your tank. Somebody has been in here, so it just popped straight off here very easily. Then you want to disconnect from the air filter to the carburetor. There is just a screw fitting. Let's see if I can get you pretty close. Just a screw fitting right there. Same thing over here. Screw to be removed on this side. Loosen them up and you should be able to work the carburetor. I worked it off the air filter side first and then pulled it away from the engine. Now it's loose. Now what's left here on the top of the carburetor looks like it is kind of the throttle adjustments. So looks like I can put a pair of vice grips or channel locks on here and remove this. So that is my plan. After I remove this connection right here, should be able to pull the carburetor free. So hang on one second. So learning this machine as I go, so you guys bear with me. Don't know, this looks some sort of bracket that holds this in. I'm gonna remove it, even if it's not. That's okay, it's in my way. So then drop the screw while you're at it. If you do like I do, hopefully you get lucky and catch it. So got my vice grips on here and I'm trying to loosen it up. Hold on the carburetor so you don't spin it. That's probably loose enough for me to get the rest of it with my hand. It must have some pretty fine threads. Didn't look like it would, but the previous owner said it had a carb problem. I don't know. Everybody always says it's a carb problem when something doesn't run. A lot of times it is, so it's a good place to start. This thing looks like it's been sitting for a very, very long time. So I do agree it's a good place to start. Okay guys, carburetor's on the bench. I'm gonna go ahead and well, pop off the hoses, empty out the fuel, the remaining fuel. And we shall start the teardown. I want to get into this bowl, see what we look like. And again, somebody's been in here as well because these screws are pretty rounded out. I'm a big fan of magnetic bowls. Don't like to lose my screws, and so I probably have 15 of these things floating around with different projects. A good set of screwdrivers really does help. These Craftsman really aren't too bad. They're affordable, and they're a pretty nice set. I guess maybe I could put a link to them in the bottom of the video. But a good set of screwdrivers really does make all the difference in the world. I'll probably reinstall these screws because I don't feel like going to the hardware store to replace them. They're not that bad, but you know, just make sure you have good pressure on it when you break them loose. Most of the time they get stripped out on the removal, not the installation, so leave that loose. I will probably end up replacing these fuel lines. They are pretty brittle. So let's see what we've got. Definitely a little bit of trash down there. Good bit of trash really down the bottom of this thing. So definitely needs a good cleaning. I don't know if you can see that. Put a pile of trash right here. Definitely was a good candidate for a clean and rebuild. So these are your floats here. See if I can get this pin out without having to go get a punch. And you may see me, may hear me say this thing multiple times, but do as I say, not as I do. This would be a good candidate for a brass punch, but I don't have one. See if I can move the camera so you can see what I'm doing here. See that pin's moving and got it loose. So pull the float out, take a look at the needle. If you can see that, try to get you, I guess the camera doesn't really want to adjust here. The needle looks okay. I think my rebuild kit has another one, so I do plan on using that. Let's keep going. Let's see here. Whoop. Now with a carburetor, if you've never cleaned one before, it really is a good idea to get in here and clean it well. I like to remove most everything possible. Figure out how to get that out in just a minute. Let me get a pick. Here's your bowl gasket. Whoop. It's pretty brittle. If I didn't break it, I probably could have reused it if I needed to, but broke it. That's okay. Rebuild kit's got another one, and I'm gonna need to take that off. Careful, there's an O-ring here. I gotta check. I don't even know if my rebuild kit has an O-ring, but there's a pile of trash in this carburetor, so absolutely needs to be cleaned. I don't know if you can see in there super well, but this thing is just, let's see if I can find my pick to show you. This is absolutely caked in garbage down here. So go ahead and pop this off. You usually need a good little flathead when you're doing this. Take that out, don't lose the spring. See if I can, they're gonna just break. No, maybe not. And then we'll go ahead and take this one off. Oh, wow. That thing was on there. All right, so we're gonna try that. In order to get in here to your pilot jet, you're gonna need a very tiny eyeglass case screwdriver, flathead to get that out. Also, off camera, I went ahead and loosened this up. So I have a set of these from Husky. They're pretty cheap. I don't use them often. Normally I try to buy decent tools, but this doesn't get used a whole lot. So 12 millimeter down here to loosen the carb. And pull that whole assembly out. Mine is bent. We'll see if we can straighten that out, but you can kind of see not exactly in there perfect. All right, trying to get this out. Oh, got my screwdriver stuck in there. Push it a little bit harder. There we go. By the way, what you just saw me do, probably not the best idea, but it worked. Probably should have used the Phillips head. Pop this thing out. The kit does not come with a new one, so be careful with this, but I don't know if you can see all these little tiny holes. I really wanted to be able to give this thing a great cleaning. All right, now we got pretty much everything removed that we need to remove. Here's the new kit that I have. Got a bunch of the jets, O-rings, filters. So we will go ahead and get started here. I want to give this thing a great cleaning. Now, you get a couple options for cleaning. You could use carburetor cleaner. We're going to go straight overhaul. I actually have an ultrasonic cleaner. Thank you, Harbor Freight. Give you guys a good plug. Harbor Freight, you know, some things are questionable. But tools like this don't get used too terribly often. But, you know, the carburetors, perfect for an ultrasonic. So what I use in mine is some Simple Green heavy duty Pro HD heavy duty cleaner. I usually cut it about 50-50 with water, throw it in the ultrasonic, and it usually does a pretty good job. The tray off, and put everything in here. Now, I do plan on replacing a large portion of this. Don't need the screws in there, so they can go off to the side. Don't need the float. Like I said, I do plan on replacing a large portion of this, but I want to go ahead and clean what I can. That way, sometimes, honestly, it's an aftermarket kit. Sometimes these aftermarket kits are not the greatest. Sometimes you'll find that pieces and parts, they just don't work that well. Sometimes the jets aren't the same bore of the hole. Sometimes a little bit not enough, runs lean, runs rich. So if that's the case, I want to be able to reuse the stock components. And we'll just see how good these things come out. It's possible I reuse all the stock components and just use this kit for new needle, O-rings, things of that nature. So one step at a time, and we'll go from there. Now we got to drop this thing into the ultrasonic. So first thing I'm noticing here is the carburetor itself will not be completely submerged. It's a little bigger than the ultrasonic. I think pretty soon here I'm going to change from this style ultrasonic to a little bit better. You know, this one was probably 60, 70 bucks. I honestly can't remember what I paid for this. But I'm going to change and go to a little bit deeper, bigger version. It'll cost me a little bit more money. I don't think Harbor Freight sells what I want, but you can pick them up on Amazon. And we'll go from there. So the way this thing works is turn it on. Mine stays on. Set your timer. It allows you to go to 480 seconds. This thing's going to need a lot more than that. This water is a little dark. I've cleaned one carb since I replaced this, but it's still pretty strong. It's going to be fine for this. So I'm going to run it through, I don't know, 4 or 5 times and go from there. There's also heat. If you push this button, the heat will pop on. So we're going to go ahead and let that clean. And we'll check back in. I'm going to run it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, flip it around, and we'll see what it looks like when it comes out. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so pulled it out of the ultrasonic. I rinsed it out with some water. Not perfect, there's still a little bit of goop down there, but that's okay, we'll get it. Ultimately, I'd say this came out pretty good. Like I said, I just ran it through 3 times. You can go more. I did it with a little bit of heat, so most of this got cleaned up pretty good, about as good as it's going to, until I go for the next step here, which is going to be carb cleaner. So carb cleaner, I like to go to Walmart. It's about the cheapest carb cleaner I find, and I go through a lot of this stuff. I use it for everything. Sometimes use it in place of brake cleaner. And what I also bought was some tools to clean carbs. Like I said, I do a lot of riding mower repairs, and these are a lot of little tools, little tiny, to get in the jets. Also, I think I bought a kit. I had 3 of these, as well as 3 of these. These are little tiny thin files, kind of to ream out holes. So you don't want to make the hole any bigger, but you do want to clean what you got. So I'm going to work on that. So I'm going to start with kind of cleaning this. So let me flip around so you can see what I'm doing over here, and we'll go from there. So here you go. Want to clean out. Do not get this in your eyes. It is painful. Trust me. So get carb cleaner in all the holes. Try not to get carb cleaner all over your camera. All right, so got that pretty clean. Next is carb itself. Ooh, that got some good stuff out. So, same thing with all your jets, get them good and clean, and I'm really leaning towards reusing all these, so I want to make sure that they're good and clean. Now, so initially got all the parts pretty clean, but then I want to take it one step further, and I think that's the smallest one on here. Switch over to this kit, and really want to try to remount these holes. So find yourself one that fits in, not too big, and run it back and forth. See if I can get the next size up in there. And like I said, you're really trying to get these as clean as you possibly can. These two are done. That one's pretty good. That one's good. And then you want to find one that's just the right size to get into all these tiny little nooks and crannies. So I need the smallest one I got right here. And what we're going to do is try to get this through here. Kind of see it's all the way through. And ream it out. Walk it all the way down. Sometimes that carb cleaner doesn't get all this little junk out of here, so you want to make sure that you do. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's actually a little bit of goop still on there that this thing got out. So now, alright guys, ran it through Ultrasonic 2 more times. Gonna inspect what I did. Okay, it looks much better. Flip around the other side. Okay, I can live with that. So now that we ran the ultrasonic cleaner through it, we're still gonna clean it out again with a little bit of carb cleaner. After you, maybe I should have, but what I didn't show you was after you you run the carb cleaner, I like to rinse it out with water, or after you run the ultrasonic, I personally like to rinse it out with a little bit of water. It's just the easiest way, the quickest way to get it done. But you know, carburetor fuel, you don't really want a bunch of water in your carburetor. Not good. Carb cleaner is okay. Carb cleaner will burn. So if you leave water in, you may be doing this again. So make sure you get all the water out. What I should do probably is blow it out with compressed air. That would be the best advice I can give you. But I'm lazy. I think it'll be fine. I'm just cleaning out the last little bit of trash. For some reason, man, these were dirty. A ridiculous amount. Not really sure why. So anyway, time to put it back together. Let me go grab a little bit of WD-40. Nothing special, just a little bit of WD-40. For a couple reasons. One, I want to push this jet back in. So a little bit of WD-40 here. And again, nothing special, just the regular WD-40. Just to lube up this hole. Drop this back in from the top. You see this side looks a little bit different. The bigger side, it's got the threads. You want that to come back out. So that didn't work. We are gonna get a little creative here. If you can see, I'm trying to line it up with that hole. Got it in there and kind of press it in. I just noticed a problem here. So I'll see if I can show this. See if it comes through. But there is a little bit of a notch. If you can see it right above my finger, needs to line up with this piece of brass here. So this kind of locks it in. Boom. Locks it into place. So you got to line it up just perfect or it won't come in all the way. So got that in. I'm gonna stick a little Phillips head in there just so I can keep it from moving on me. I'll try to angle this to you. Phillips head, like I said, it's just kind of holding this up. So get your washer back in here and then find your jet. Now, you do want to get it in here tight, but not too tight. Keep in mind, I think these things are brass, can strip pretty easily, but you also don't want to work it out. So I'd say just good and tight, not too tight. How about that? Next, want to get this in there. Same deal. Just a little bit of lube. And should just be able to press that in. Be careful. Sorry, I think I sprayed carb cleaner in there, not lube. So I sprayed it on here. Just be careful when you put it in there. You don't want to damage damaged that O-ring. So just kind of walk it in there. And that is pretty tight. So I say don't damage the O-ring, and don't, but having a hard time getting that thing on there. It's like it's not the right size O-ring. I don't like this. Well, could end up having to reuse the old one, except I don't know where I put it. Perfect example of why you don't throw things away till you know you don't need them. Yep. That's just that O-ring is just a little bit too big. Good news is I have my handy dandy O-ring kit here. So let's see if I can try one of these. Oh yeah, much better. Beautiful. Get it in there. Now, go find the screws that you lost. Oh, I'm sorry, that's just what I have to do. And if you were smarter than me, which you probably are, you would pay better attention to what you got. But go ahead and get this retainer bracket in. This will keep this from backing out. Okay. Looking good. Not that I'm following any kind of particular order here, guys, but don't forget your spring. So this is an adjustment here, and you may find yourself needing to adjust it after you start your bike, but we're going to try to set it back to the stock settings, which is kind of run in here till it bottoms out and do 2.5 turns back. So 1, 2.5. And we'll adjust as needed from there once we get the bike running. So flipping back over. Get that good and cleaned. Drop that jet back in there. Remember your handy dandy eyeglass screwdrivers and tighten that thing up. Now remember, don't want to strip it, it's brass. Just get it tight. Okay. Honestly, not sure the exact purpose of that, but that's okay. Then you got to put your new needle on here. Slide it on this centerpiece here. Let it hang. Doesn't matter. The needle's got, you know, this little bracket here. Doesn't really matter. Can't really get it into focus. Doesn't matter which side you put it on from. Some people will tell you you do. They're wrong. So make sure the needle drops down in there. Oh, excuse me. Push this back in. Don't lose this. Just want to verify that this moves. So hopefully you can see in there. You want to make sure your needle is dropping. There's no resistance. It's not getting hung up. So that looks pretty good to me. Alright, so now flip your carb up. You got all your pieces replaced. You are ready to go. So now you want to change your gasket. Now, one thing to note here, guys, is carb cleaner makes gaskets swell. So you really want to have them removed prior to squirting things with carb cleaner. And so that's possibly what I did here to the O-ring. But that's okay. We're just going to forget that. And again, I'm not going to the hardware store. It's closed right now. So I'm going to go ahead and just reuse the existing screws. They're not perfect, but they're not terrible. I'll be able to tighten it down correctly. And you can't screw this up. The case only goes on, the bowl only goes on one way. So what I like to do is just call it finger tight all the way around, and then go good and tight. Now, one point of note, I buy rebuild kits a lot of times for the gaskets, and that way if something's really bad I can change it. But honestly, most of the time, if you do a good cleaning, these things are going to work just fine. I replaced some parts because why not? But that being said, I probably didn't need to replace any of the parts. The ones that I cleaned would work just fine. So now we have a good and clean carburetor for reinstallation on the bike. I'm not going to install it just a second. I want to take a look at the gas tank, see what I can see.